Fighting games has always been a genre that I've wanted to try out, but I was either distracted by other games or too intimidated to play. But last year, I decided to bite the bullet and finally get myself into a fighting game. So I had to choose one, and after spending an hour looking at games, the choice felt pretty obvious.
That is bullshit blazing, still my heart is blazing. If I lose my wings, I don't need a new world under you. Can't feel a thing, we already know the smell of the game. Remember you are blazing, still your heart is blazing. If the world made you, I don't need a new world under you. Soon you will know, we already know the smell of the game.
A bit of history. Guilty Gear was a 2D fighter released in 1998. It was a fighting game developed to be easy to pick up while being fun to play. And from there, the franchise would go to Guilty Gear X, XX, and a 3D RTS? To Xrd, Xrd Sign, Xrd Rev, and Rev 2. Until in 2021, Guilty Gear Strive released to the public, and a year later, I decided to pick it up as my first fighting game. And I could have picked out from a bunch of other titles. Street Fighter is arguably the most well-known and popular fighting game franchise. Skullgirls offered a very unique art style. Tekken 7 has a panda. So why did I choose Strive? Well, I had three big reasons. The visuals, the characters, and the music. Back in early 2014, Epic Games and the whole video game industry were preparing to move to a completely new engine. And most players looked at the visuals from the very best games released in the past few years and asked, what comes next? And then Arxis kicks down the door and says, hey! Check this out. And then in 2020, it happened again. I don't think there's any game out there that looks like Strive. Not even the previous game in the series. The 3D models utilizes a toon shader to create this unique anime-esque visual style. Except I don't think I can quite call it anime. Because even though the outlines help imitate the look of anime, everything is still so clearly 3D. I'd describe it as 2.5D, but leaning more on that 3D half. And the animations have so much effort put into them. From the very clear hard work like the overdrives to the smaller animations that don't have their difficulty so obvious. Clothes and physics. Loose clothing articles can be extremely hard to animate, and that's because the difference between right and wrong is so engraved into our minds as people. Even the slightest infraction can be noticed by any everyday person. For example, let's look at Sin. Sin's flag is his defining feature, and it's flowing as if the wind is pushing it around, and his coat tied around his waist follows along it. The subtle expansion of his upper body as he takes a deep breath is also reflected in the rest of his lower body. Or how about the fact that his hair, the coat, and the flag all come to a rest after he crouches down? There's so many small details in just his outfit and weapon that I can't imagine having to animate them, and we're just talking about standing and crouching. Overdrives are the equivalent of an ultimate ability in Overwatch or Valorant, except they're way cooler looking. When you activate them, the game pauses for a second to put emphasis on the upcoming attack, and some transition from the in-game model to these higher quality models that let the animator show off more details, whether it's in the moves or the more vibrant facial animation. These animations are also animated on ones, which if you didn't know what that means, it means that they're manually animating each frame you see. Not just that, but the models are also subtly deformed to create imperfections from frame to frame. Even if they have to adjust the lighting to keep getting the appearances they want, the animators are taking the workflow of 2D hand-drawn animation and applying it to 3D models, actively drawing the computer out and bringing back in the subtle intentions from the artist. So, because Strive runs at 60 FPS, the shortest animation has roughly 95 frames, and the longest has around 450 frames. My two favorite animations would be Zato's Amorphous and Ino's Megalomania. The art style of Guilty Gear is so unique and obviously refined in the years between Xrd and Strive's release. The animator's commitment to utilize 3D models creates a beautiful game that is just so enjoyable to look at, the stages and characters especially. In any game on the market, you need good characters, each with some part of their identity for the fans to fall in love with. TF2 and the Mercs, Metal Gear Rising Revengeance with Raiden and the bosses like Sam and Senator Armstrong, and Strive is chock full of wonderful characters. And unfortunately, I don't have the time to talk about everyone in the roster, but I have my personal highlights to share here.
Soul Bad Guy.
Soul is the de facto face of the game, and he's a perfect embodiment of the gameplay philosophy of Guilty Gear Strive. He's a generally well-rounded character, a Shoto if you will, but he's still focused on aggression. His kit is built to place him right in your face, whether it's the mobility of Bandit Revolver or Vortex, or the oppressive pressure of Fafnir. A Soul wants to get up close and personal, and his theme, Find Your One Way, accentuates that core of aggression.
Strike back! Get them out of your way! You don't care if along the way's a little sacrifice! Strike back! Get them out of your way! Listen to your heart, let the voice in your head! Get them out of your way! You don't care if along the way's a little sacrifice! Strike back! Get them out of your way! Don't melt in the world, find your own way!
Kai Kisk.
Kai is the deuteragonist and rival to Soul, also his son-in-law, but we can ignore that. He's a simple character and is even closer to a traditionally defined Shoto. And when Kai gets on low HP, he can activate Dragon Install. It's a comeback mechanic that lets your opponent know that the fight isn't over and that you're not backing down. And look, I don't care if this move is a waste of meter, I love everything about Dragon Install. The animation in tandem with the buffs to your moves sells this idea of unleashing raw power, and I mean, he just looks so much cooler this way. These flames look so feral compared to how clean Kai normally looks. I think it's an incredible way to visually tell more of his personality and story.
Chip Zanuck.
Chip Zanuck is a ninja and is a pretty unique take on the glass cannon archetype that a lot of other games also use. Chip's gameplay is all about sticking close to his opponent and constantly getting around their defense. He's got lots of really fast attacks that can hit overhead, low, left, right, etc. But he also can't take a hit. He's effectively the squishiest character in the game, and if you make a mistake, then you're going to feel that punishment. Even though that's the case, I found his theme song to be like a message to the players of the mindset they should take on when they choose Chip. Things will suck, and not everything is going to go correctly. Sometimes while you're playing, one mistake is going to cost you the whole game, and that's okay.
No matter what life throws at you, take it on. Well, fight like a tiger, walk in the park. Play the hero till I die. Fly like an eagle, soar through the sky. Be free till you die.
Potemkin.
Potemkin isn't just any kind of grappler. Potemkin is the grappler. Grapplers are characters who are specialized in command grabs to deal tons of damage, and they're designed to instill fear in the opponent when they're up close and personal. Potemkin takes all the aspects of a grappler and turns it up to 11. His giant size and slow movement make him intimidating to just stand next to. His walk animation has so much weight to each step. The impact of a Potemkin buster is incredible. Even his music has just this oppressive feeling to it. The team over at Arxis has done an insane job at really emphasizing his imposing presence in each match. But he's not all just serious. I mean, look at how disproportionate his hands are. The animations of some of the moves are just flat out comedy gold. whether we're using our butt to squish our enemies or slamming our faces onto the ground to trip our enemies up. But then there's his overdrive. Which by far has some of the best visuals in the entire game. And especially with how inconsistent it can be, it makes the moment when it lands all the more impactful and satisfying. And when you're on the receiving end, all the more terrifying.
Don't you dare! Faust.
Faust in Exord was a really great comedic character, with tons of funny animations like his throw, or the door, or even using a pad to send everyone to the stratosphere. I wonder what they did to him in Strive. Oh, what the Visually, Faust is a complete 180. Sure, he's still this freakishly tall doctor, but the aesthetics of his design are completely opposite from what he used to be. He's also the only character that can move while crouched in his own special way. What's amazing to me though is how despite his appearance being so drastically altered, his gameplay is still similar to Exord, and more focused than before. Even though he still has some tools like his ability to have a vague left, right, and above mix, he's way more focused on his ability to pull out random items. He's no longer limited to only having one on screen at a time. He can now pull out multiple one after another, after a... And they have varying amounts of power and rarity depending on the item. It's kind of like hitting an item box in Mario Kart. Sometimes it's a banana, other times it's a blue shell.
Chaos.
Now, to some players, the mere mention of this character boils their blood and they begin to froth at the mouth as they call for nerfs and bans. And I'm over here just completely falling in love with his design and character. I don't really care how powerful of a character he is, but the fact that he is everything I love in characters. Across every character-based game I've played, I have always loved the unconventional. In TF2, Spy was my favorite. Overwatch, I still love Junkrat. And a character who sacrifices an entire attack for a gun that his whole gameplay has been designed around is right up my alley. And not only that, but everything else about him breaks the rules of the game. He walks in from the same side as his opponent. He'll be upside down when he sticks to the wall. He shoots the timer when it runs out. This, alongside his personality of sticking around for what's fun, is so enjoyable to me, and he's the character I connected with the most in the entire roster. Oftentimes, characters are used to express parts of ourselves and our personalities. Some characters can connect to us through their stories, designs, or gameplay. And in fighting games where we interact with other players through our character, it's of utmost importance for players to find ways to enjoy these characters. And Strive is able to cover a wide range of aesthetics, stories, and communities and bring them together because of its incredible cast. And with a recent announcement that Season 3 is in development and Bedman's introduction, I have no doubt that Strive will continue with their track record of insanely high quality characters. And if we're talking about expressing ourselves, there might not be any other media out there that is more known for its self-expression other than music. From our emotions, displeasure with the world, or even a desire for change, music is undoubtedly an important piece of our culture as humans. And with video games, music has been used as a tool to amplify the emotions of a player. And Strive's music helps to elevate the energy behind each match, while also taking the opportunity to use the lyrics to give insight into the character. No matter which theme you choose, the lyrics will provide some context to their personality or their story. Whether it's through the layering of the instrumentals and lyrics in Let Me Carve Your Way, the determination feeling behind Roar the Spark, or even the hope towards the end of The Mirror of the World. And I think it's pretty obvious that there is some insane production quality in each theme. And looking back at some of the older songs from the previous entries, it's still there. It's quite crazy to see how far this franchise has come since the late 90s. Even the songs that deviate from the norm of rock and metal, Icarus, Birthday Train, and Lily include instruments you wouldn't expect, like a piano or the use of other string instruments that aren't guitars. Even if you're someone who doesn't normally listen to rock or metal, I think you can find a lot of the songs in here that are very enjoyable to just listen to on their own. I often hear that fighting games are very daunting to get into, and people worry about the big combos, the insane learning curve that accompanies them, and believe me, I was there too. But at the end of the day, they're still a game, and what I want is an enjoyable piece of media. And Strive provides me with so many of the things to fall in love with while I was learning the basics of a fighting game. I have never played a fighting game before in all my life. I come from a background of primarily FPS games, but I could still enjoy the animations, fall in love with the unique roster, and listen along to the incredible soundtrack. And those three things made the process of learning how to move, play neutral, and build combos feel way less like a chore and more like a hobby. And the love I have for this game has only grown with the time I've put into it. Even though it may be having a rough time as of recent, I don't think I'm going to be putting it down anytime soon. I've had way too much fun meeting new people and making new friends because of Strive, and I've been inspired by the passion I found from the FGC. Say what you will about this community, but I admire their drive to improve their play and the risks they take to compete at the highest level. Players like Arslan Ash leave their home country to compete, and as a result, bring so many new eyes and opportunities to their home community. And these people are almost always willing to give a helping hand to new players, because fighting games are something special and they want you to join. The feeling that they invoke shines through no matter where you are. Whether you're fighting on stage at EVO, at a local major, or playing with your friends, or even by yourself at your computer. Everybody can fight, and no matter where you start, with work, you can be right alongside the best players. Hey there, thanks for watching the video. First things first, shout out to Uzelac for creating this masterpiece in Blender for me. Go follow their socials, they're on YouTube, wherever you can find them. And other than that, I'm just gonna keep things quick here. The production of this video ended up being longer since I had school and some other events that occurred. Plus, there was a lot of the script that ended up just being cut out. Like, for example, I originally intended to talk about the entire roster and give everybody their own little section, but I realized that it didn't really all flow that well, so I decided to take it all out. I also wanted to talk about the gameplay, but I couldn't really spin it in a way that was unique or felt unique, so I decided to also cut that part. The editing on this video was still really fun, but coming up with ideas and visuals felt harder this time. But even still, I think it turned out well. I don't really mind if people think this video isn't that great, or if the video doesn't really do well, since I learned a lot from this video. From working on it, I have tons of notes, and that's more important to me. I still have like 10 videos planned to work on over however long I keep doing this, so it's gonna take a little bit, but I'm excited to get through them all. But this summer, I think I'm gonna chill for a little bit longer than last time, to research some techniques, some programs, things like that. But other than that, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I especially hope you all have a really great summer. Bye!